Welcome to the Floyd Memorial Library podcast, where we sit down with the people who give shape, texture, and voice to life on the North Fork of Long Island. Some are rooted here by generations, others arrived by chance or choice, but all carry with them a piece of the story. We talk about what's changing, what's worth holding on to, and the currents of history, both quiet and loud, that run through this place. I'm your host, Christopher Bianchi, and for episode 208, we sit down with Tom Crowley, a longtime educator who's worked over 3 decades at the Greenport High School, has left a lasting mark on generations of students. We began by talking about where he grew up and the experiences that shaped his early life, before following his path through school, college, and ultimately to the North Fork in the early 1970s. In our conversation, Tom reflects on his first impressions of Greenport, what the community and the school were like when he began teaching, the changes he's witnessed over the years, and the students and the moments he'll never forget. He also shares his perspective on how the village has evolved socially and culturally and what he hopes to see for the future. So I hope you enjoy episode 208 with Tom Crowley. This episode was recorded August 8th, 2025. Thank you so much for coming on the Floyd Memorial Library podcast today. It's really great to have you on today.
Thank you.
Definitely.
Thank you.
And so with these interviews, I usually like to start off, if you can give us a little intro about yourself, where you were born and raised.
Well, I used to teach school, and the kids always, at the end of my career, when I was getting up there, the kids used to ask me, how old I was and where was I born and when was I born. And I used to say I was born in the latter half of the first half of the last century. I was born in Manhattan, Washington Heights. My family had a presence there since the 1920s. And then in 1955, we moved to Long Island. There was no expressway back then. I don't know where it ended. I think it ended around Route 110. And we moved out to the woods of Central Islip. I don't know why my parents chose Central Islip, but it turned out that there was a hospital there as well. And it was, now later in life, I realized it was truly a factory town when I grew up there. Mm-hmm. I would say 3 out of 4 people I knew, their parents worked at the hospital. Mm-hmm. My parents did not work at the hospital.
Okay. What did they do for work, or even when they
My
were...
mother never worked. There were 5 of us. I'm the oldest. There were 3 boys and 2 girls. We're all still alive. My mother, unfortunately, died in 1967 at 40, just barely 40 years old. My father was a salesman. He sold building supplies. So, when I was in high school, he worked for some cement company, and I actually went to Shea Stadium before it opened up because his company had poured unknown numbers of yards of concrete into Shea Stadium. But that was it.
And how old were you when you moved out?
I was 7 years old when we moved to the country. You go back there now, it doesn't look too country-ish. No. But it was pretty rural. We knew that the island went on forever, but it was pretty rural when we first got there. Both of my parents had grown up in the city, so things like oil burners but having lived out here for most of my adult life, if not all my adult life, mm-hmm. Things like cesspools and wells, and we had sewers back. We didn't have sewers back then. So we had to be careful of what we did. So it was a big deal for them moving out to the country. But Yeah, we left the area. I still had relatives in the city, and I went back and spent most of my next 7 years in the summertime running around Washington Heights
Hmm.
until I was about 12, 13. Then I started staying
Oh, okay.
out.
How was that? And that environment was very different.
Well, you know, I just was up the island. I don't know, about a year or two ago. My in-laws live up there, and I'll give you an example. When I was a kid, I used to I used to sneak to Lake Ronkonkoma
Hmm.
from Central Islip to go swimming. We didn't like swimming in the bay because there were too many crabs to bite you. You'd be lucky to find a crab in the Great South Bay now. But back then, if you were paddling around on your hands and knees, invariably you'd come up with one or two crabs that bit you. So we always tended to head to the lake. And I remember riding my bike, no hands, pedaling down Motor Parkway. And there's a big hill there that, now it comes off of the expressway. But back then it was, it just appeared.
Hmm.
And a guy beeped the horn at the top of the hill. I was about a mile away from him. There were no cars between us.
Hmm.
Very few houses. So, yeah. When I was down sitting on bumper-to-bumper traffic on Motor Parkway, I said to my wife, I used to drive my bicycle down here, no hands. You wouldn't do that now.
Yes. So yeah, that was very
But
much.
we'd go to the lake. As I said, it wasn't very built up. So the Connecticut River starts way back in the woods of Central Islip, believe it or not. I guess they call it something else now, Lakeland. But back then it was still Central Islip, or at least the road to Ronkonkoma. We'd ride our bikes we'd go swimming in the headwaters of the Connecticut River, collect frogs, wander around. I'd leave the house 7:30 in the morning. I would never go home until the church bells rang at 6 o'clock, and I
6 o'clock.
knew it was time to get home. So
Very
yeah,
much spending time outside.
yeah. I was outside. My grandson goes to school in Binghamton, and one of the guys I grew up with lives in Binghamton. And we used to play baseball on a baseball field, but only could hit the left field because we didn't have enough guys to put a guy in right field. So right field was an automatic out. Yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah.
My father my father, when he was a kid, worked at the polo grounds, and he had a ball from the 1940 something, like 1942, 43 Giants.
Hmm.
Everybody signed it. He was hawking hot dogs, and he got knocked out by a foul ball. And I needed a hard ball to continue playing, so I went and I got the ball off the top of his dresser, and
Oh.
we used it. So that didn't go over well.
And what about your time in high school?
By the time I got to high school, you got to look at the calendar. It was like I started high school in '62 and graduated in '66. I just got involved with all those things that were popular back then. At 11 and 12, I was a mini motorhead. The older guys had souped up cars, and I was always hanging around with them. And then, but I played sports. I played three sports. And then I got involved with surfing, and that took over my life for about 7 years, 8 years. I've been married almost 56 years. It'll be 56 years in 2 weeks.
Wow.
Nobody's counting. But so after we had the second kid, I hung up my board. I never really went back to the beach. And now in retirement, my wife and I we have a place in Florida near the water, and we go camping in Montauk, which is that's how I ended up here in the first place. I went to college, met my wife. got married while I was still in college, started a family while I was still in college. I guess I didn't think too much about a job. I had a job. I was working as a union laborer, so I was making a lot of money. I was making like $6 an hour when all my friends were making like $1.65 to $2 an hour. So
You were doing that throughout Long Island?
I drove all over Long Island. One day I'd be in Queens Plaza, next day I'd be in Montauk.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple of buildings still standing in Montauk that I actually mixed the cement for the mortar. There's a supermarket in Hampton Bays that's still, I don't know if it's a supermarket, but when I go by there, I always have to remind everybody that I built that one over there, all by myself. So I got married in college. I wanted to go different places. Actually, I applied for a number of jobs. Did we say that I taught school for 33 years? I taught in Greenport for 33 years.
But were you thinking that coming out of high school you wanted to be a teacher?
Coming out of high school, I had no idea what that guy was going to do. I had a mother who kept telling me that you're going to college, you're going to college, you're going to college. So I went to college. And she was dead by the time my freshman year was over. I finished college, and somewhere in there, I thought that, there were plenty of jobs available for people coming out of college to teach school. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't know what I was going to do, honestly. Actually, I didn't even know that I was going to teach for as many years as I taught. I thought it was going to kind of be like a temporary job until I finally figured out what I was going to do. Mm-hmm. And here I am. I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to do. But anyhow, that's it. I wanted to live. I applied for a job, numerous jobs, got numerous jobs. I think I had 5 jobs when I got out of college. And one of them was in Hawaii. Huh. And the guy who interviewed me was the head of science education for the state of Hawaii. Huh. And I said I didn't want to live in Honolulu. So he goes, well, you must want to live on either Maui or Kauai. I said, yes. But, we had a kid. My wife had excuse me. My wife had her family was very close. My family kind of fell apart after my mother passed away. I didn't see my sisters and brothers for years. But she wanted to stay and be close to her family. So I said, well, if that's the case, we're going to go east of Riverhead. So I wrote out an introductory letter and sent it to all the high schools east of Riverhead. Mm-hmm. And it just so happened that a local legend named Dude Manwaring was driving around New York State interviewing people for jobs. And I met him at college, and we talked. And he offered me a job. And we drove down here and from all the way from upstate, and we looked at it, and I said, I'm going to take the job. And my wife agreed. And the rest is history. I've been here ever since.
But you mentioned that you went to... Did you first visit the South Fork?
I hung out in the South Fork from the time I was 15 until I was 23 or 24.
Oh, okay.
When I say hung out, I mean I'd go to the beaches, go surfing, go swimming, go fishing, and then come home. Mm-hmm. I have no idea what the nightlife was like even back then. So,
but was it mostly Montauk?
It was Southampton, Shinnecock Inlet, and Montauk. Okay.
But it was very different at that time.
Oh, yeah. Hampton Bays, that area around the inlet, always got a big crowd in the summertime. Mm-hmm. Montauk was fairly crowded. It's not like it is now. Mm-hmm. Back in the day, and until very recently, Montauk was quite affordable for working people. It's not any longer. I have a good friend of mine that I went to college with who has a place, a summer place in Montauk. He did very well for himself. So he winters in Puerto Rico and spends his summers in Montauk. And so because we spend so much time camping there, I've looked at houses and stuff. And the starting house in Montauk is like $2 million. In case you want to write a check out.
Yeah. And when did you first come to the North Fork? Was that in the That was had to be 60s.
I met Dude and Mr. Manwaring at the time. I met Mr. Manwaring, and we drove down here. I took the job. I signed on the dotted line, went back, finished college, packed up everything in a U-Haul, and stayed for 3 or 4 weeks at my mother-in-law's, and then we moved out here. So I've been here ever since I graduated from college.
Wow. But what did you think of the North Fork of Greenport at that time?
Well, my wife thought I took it to the end of the earth. But it was fine. It was great. It was great. It was coming to Long Island was a concession on my part because I had a job in Alaska, I had a job in Hawaii, I had a job out west, and we came here. It was, I think, if I remember correctly, when we first moved there were 25,000 acres of land in potatoes. I don't think there's 500 acres of land in potatoes any longer. But so I have a good friend of mine who moved out here in the 80s, in the wintertime, and he calls it the nuclear winter. He said he thought that a bomb had gone off out here. It was pretty desolate back then. If I think back, there was no 7-Eleven anywhere. There was a package store, not a package store, a little deli on the north end of town called Rouse's. And if you needed anything, you would stop at Rouse's. It's a residence now. There were a lot of neighborhood stores in Greenport that are no longer.
Yeah.
Every little neighborhood had a store.
A little deli or some type
right.
of store.
Actually, right out the back door here, on 2nd Street, 2nd and Broad. My wife worked for the post office. She graduated from college with me, and she taught for a while, but she didn't like teaching. So she ended up, and again, jobs were few and far between back then. Not that they're so abundant now, but I mean, jobs are really scarce. So it didn't look like she was going to get a job teaching, and then something opened up at the post office, so she took the job at the post office. And that was after our last kid. We have 4 kids. After our last kid started first grade. So it had to be around 1980. But anyhow, she calls me on the phone and she says, I found an ice box. I said, what? Yeah, so-and-so has an ice box, and maybe you're interested in it. So I go over to this older man. He was an old man. He's probably the same age as I am right now. And he was renting a house on 2nd Street in Broad. And there was a commercial ice box in there. They used to put like 500 pounds of ice in it. And it was for the storefront that used to be there. We started talking about neighborhood stores. I actually got 5 guys to help me get it out of the guy's house and brought it out to, we had a house in East Marion before we moved to Orient. And I took the stairs out in the basement and we lowered it down. And then I finished up the basement and built that into the wall. And it was the storage place for all the blankets and pillows and stuff like that.
Wow.
But it must have weighed 1,000 pounds. And I don't know how many beer openers I found in that thing and how many beer caps I found in that. But when we left East Marion a long time ago, we've been in Orient now for 37 years or something like that.
Wow.
I left the icebox in the basement. There's no. It wasn't getting. You weren't getting that out.
But you mentioned it was quiet. Did it feel, or did Greenport feel gritty, or?
Greenport was different.
Yeah.
It was a different time. It was different. When we first moved here, I would say somewhere between a third and half of all the storefronts were empty.
Mm-hmm.
There was an active fishing industry here,
Mm-hmm.
which supported 2 hardware stores, 2 supermarkets, it was another small market.
Mm.
There was IGA, there was A&P, and there was Preston's Market. All of them were busy, basically providing supplies to the fishing fleet. And there were a lot of bars.
You had to have the bars.
A lot of bars. And a lot of liquor stores. I think at one time there was like 5 liquor stores in Greenport. Supporting the fishing fleet.
Yes. And so you started teaching 1970?
I started in September 1970, yeah.
And what were you teaching then? Because you studied chemistry at SUNY Oneonta?
I did. I got a degree in chemistry and a license to teach 7 through 12, with an idea that I was going to just teach chemistry. Well, Greenport's K through 12, in the same building. So my first year I taught 8th and 9th grade. And I taught 8th and 9th grade for, 10 to 15 years until the chemistry teacher retired. And then I became, by default, the chemistry teacher.
Mm-hmm. And did you do that all through?
I taught 8th and 9th until about 1985. And then from 85 until I retired in 2003, I taught Regents chemistry.
Wow.
Advanced chemistry and marine bio, and then I filled out my schedule with whatever didn't fit into everybody else's schedule.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody asked me, I met a guy just recently he's an English teacher. He doesn't have a job around here. I mean, he's the resident writer in Orient.
Oh, was that Steeplechase?
Yes. Yes. And anyhow, he said, "So what did you teach?" And I said, "Chemistry." He goes, "Oh, you're a real teacher." I said, "What?" He goes, "Oh, I teach English." I said, "Well, that's just as hard as teaching chemistry." But he wanted to know what I taught. He asked me, and I said I taught every science class except for physics, 7 through 12. Some years I was teaching earth science. Some years I was teaching bio, 8th grade science, 9th grade science. For a couple of years, they had me in the elementary school trying to get some program going there. And then one year I had a class that was mainly boys. It was all these guys that, I don't know what the requirement is now, but when I was teaching, you had to have passed level 1 math to graduate from high school. Mm-hmm. And I had this class that had guys, mainly guys. I don't remember I even had a girl in that class. They had all failed level 1 at least once, mm-hmm. sometimes twice. Mm-hmm. So we got most of them through, but it was an adventure.
Yes. I've talked to some locals some that went to high school through the 60s and 70s, and they mentioned that there was a transition period between the teachers, kind of the old school teachers and the new teachers that were coming in and that wanted to teach a different way. Did you see that at that time when you were starting, some of the new teachers they were hiring? I don't know if
I was one of the new teachers. somewhere in my phone, I have it. The year that I started, Greenport hired somewhere around 9 new teachers. And that's K through 12. Mm-hmm. That's K through 12. But 9 new teachers. Mm-hmm. And a staff that only had like 45. Mm-hmm. So basically like a quarter of the staff was being replaced.
Yes.
I got drafted in my first year teaching. The Vietnam War was still going on. And I got drafted. And I went in to the superintendent. Mr. Mayor Waring was the high school principal when I started. But there was another man, Mr. Woolley was the supervising principal. They didn't have a superintendent like they do now. Mm-hmm. I don't know what changed as far as that. I never got involved with administration and titles and all that other stuff. But anyhow, I went in there and I said, hey, I've been drafted. He goes, you can't leave, you can't leave. We had 7 people in your position last year. So I was able to finish my first year. He made a couple of phone calls, and I was able to finish the year. And then I said goodbye to everybody. I said goodbye to my students. I said goodbye to all my colleagues that I had just become friends with, and mm-hmm. blah, blah, blah. And spent the summer down at Gull Pond reading books and fishing for snappers, waiting to be called into the Army. And without going into all the great details, the draft law expired, and there were no drafts the summer of 1971. So I went back to school. I said, listen, I need my job back. And they gave me the job back. I guess they had to. And anyhow, long story short, later that year, I kept waiting to get drafted. And finally I got a letter that said I had missed my induction. So I never got it. So I wrote back. I said, I never got the letter. That I was willing and ready and able to serve. And they wrote back, we accept your excuse. We'll take you in the next draft. And there never was another draft. So I stayed in Greenport. A year later, I got the draft notice. It must have been... My wife worked for the post office. She had nothing to do with it. But she said that in the old... Even now, that pieces of mail get stuck in the bags. And that the bags lay on the floors in these big post office. And somebody must have just shook out the bag. The letter fell out. They threw it into the stream. And I got it a year later. Mm-hmm. When she started here in Greenport, they still were sorting mail by hand. And she found an uncanceled postcard from 1947 that was in between the like in between the racks there, whatever the pigeonholes. Yeah. So stuff like that happens. So that's So I ended up here, and we stayed here.
Yes. All
my kids have grown up here. They all went to Greenport. All my grandkids have gone to Greenport. Mm-hmm. We still have one left, but I'm sure she's going to go. But as far as the transition, there were a lot of new teachers. I started with 8. About 6 of us stayed. Mm-hmm. 3 left, 4 left, some. But basically, I'm thinking that there was like at least 4 of us that stayed.
Was it a good... Did you feel like it was a good group and you got along with a lot of the...
I did. How things work out. I worked with a bunch of guys whose last names were Campbell, Conley, McAvoy, Kiernan, Crowley. And as we got older, we all became department chairmen, mm-hmm. which is basically an honorarium based on seniority. So and we'd have these department chairman meetings. So the staff started calling us the Irish Mafia. But we had a good run there of teaching us. Mm-hmm. It was a good bunch. Mm-hmm. I'm sure the people that are there now, I hardly know anybody that's there now. A friend of mine's wife passed away last summer, and a couple of the teachers from the school showed up, and I said, if I went back to school, would I know anybody? And she goes, no. Mm-hmm. So, because I've been out of there for a while.
Yes.
I've been out of Greenport. But we were all young, freshly out of college. A couple of them had some previous teaching experience, but not all of us. And it was just a great bunch of guys and girls. And I don't know, people have expectations, and I had no expectations, as far as who was a good student, who was a bad student. And I think that was to my advantage. And I never really had any expectations. This is the course. We're going to study it. You're welcome to take the class. Come on in. Mm-hmm. And that's how I did it. Because now I look back at some of my students, and I'm thinking of one person in particular, and I'm not going to mention names of anybody, but I asked him personally, I said, where were you in high school? Because he's a brilliant person now. Mm-hmm. I'm sure he always was. He didn't grow into his brilliance, but where were you in high school? And it's interesting that's what my English teacher said to me in my senior year when I got the highest grade in my class on the senior term paper. She said, where have you been all year? I was one of those kids with the sweatshirt with the hood pulled over his head in the back.
Yes. But over the decades teaching, what were some of the biggest challenges or changes you witnessed in education?
Well, the biggest change I saw in education is when I graduated from college. The state of New York was at the cutting edge of education in the nation, basically New York and California. We had Regents exams, which gave a standard to students. You had to learn a minimum amount. And then the politicians in Albany started to chip away at the structure of education in the state. There was a state science education department. And the man came and spoke to us when we were in college. And if you have any questions, here's my phone number. Call me. Well, there's no state ed department any longer. Mm-hmm. There's nobody to call. Somewhere in the 80s, the person who became the head of education in New York State was not an educator. He was somebody from private industry. Because through most of my teaching career, that was, everything was going to get privatized.
Through the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, I mean, taxes were too high. We got to run this like a business. And the politicians got involved. And instead of being a minimum competency exam for students, it became the benchmark for whether you're a good teacher or not, is how many students you got to pass your Regents. Mm-hmm. And yet everybody was expected to take a Regents. Mm-hmm. I got into trouble. I said to my how do you do chemistry without math? Mm-hmm. And he goes, well, math is not a prerequisite for taking chemistry. And I went, what?
Yeah, that was like just the bare minimum of what they require.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. By the time I took chemistry, I was in my third level of mathematics. Mm-hmm. I had done algebra and geometry, and I was taking trig. I mean, there was math involved. They've taken the math right out of the chemistry, which is fine. Mm-hmm. But I still, to this day, don't think that the success or failure of a Regents exam is a benchmark for student ability or teaching ability. It's just one of many things.
Mm-hmm.
And I got in hot water over that. But as far as the change, I don't, I'm not in the school anymore. I am tutoring somebody now. I haven't done that in a while. I don't see any difference,
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I meant by expectation. I mean, this kid, I'd go in there and then somebody would say, they knew their father and the father was not a good student. So therefore the kid was not expected to be a good student,
Mm-hmm.
which isn't the case. That's what I meant by I had no expectations. And now I look back and kids who were written off as being not great students,
Mm-hmm.
losers, whatever, have all done very well.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very well.
And was there, because I think even in the last few years, there's been talk about testing and schools trying to meet their quota for the...
I know that the school is having problems with test results. I mean, I think we've been identified as one of those schools where things are not going too well. And I don't know what the answer is because I'm not there.
Yeah.
I just know that I didn't have to deal with kids coming into my class who don't speak English.
Mm-hmm.
I did have a number of students. I mean, I'm not out of there so long. I just ran into a young lady. Well, she ran into me. I was having breakfast with the survivors of the eight teachers who started in 1970.
Mm-hmm.
I was having, because a lot of them have passed away.
Mm.
I was having breakfast with them the other day, and I heard this female voice call my name, and I turn around, and there's this young lady, and she had moved from here in junior high from Columbia, and I mean, she spoke broken English.
Mm-hmm.
And, by the time she graduated from high school, she went to Harvard and graduated from Harvard. That has nothing to do with what we did, but I mean, that's what I mean by expectation. This kid's not going to do well. He doesn't speak English. I did have one young man who, after 2 years, didn't speak English, and I had some friends who were from Spain, and the woman said that he was probably not speaking English Spanish as a first language, that he might have been speaking an indigenous language.
Mm-hmm.
So I never had to deal with that, but I certainly had to deal with transients.
Mm-hmm.
I remember my first year teaching, some blonde-haired kid shows up with a paper. He hands it to me. I give him a textbook. I said, "Where are you from?" "North Carolina." The boat was in. He's going to school. When the boat left, he left with the textbook and everything. So, yeah, I had a lot of kids that came and went. Mm-hmm. And I think that might be a change that we don't have to deal with today. The town in general was less affluent than it is now. Mm-hmm. Not that we have such great affluence in Greenport, but it certainly was a much more of a working class town.
Yes.
When I first started.
Yes.
So, but my kids graduated, and I had them in every class. Every one of them I had in class.
Was that interesting? It was
interesting. I had one son, still have him, who just sat there waiting for me to make a mistake. And then would raise his hand to tell me that I said something wrong. And then I had my daughter, Courtney, I remember she had her hand raised. She goes, "Mr. Crowley, Mr. Crowley, Mr. Crowley." And then she finally yells out, "Dad!" And I turn around, and she had a question. But, yeah, we all survived.
And another change probably that you started to notice probably in the 2000s was cell phones. But
it's... I did not have to deal with cell phones like the teachers have to do today.
Yes.
I'm trying to think. There was a a type of cell phone that came out early on.
Not a pager type.
Not a pager, no. It was one of those ones where you could store data on it, and I can't think of the name of it. They've since become obsolete, and but I remember sitting in one of those department meetings, and the superintendent goes, "What the hell is and because he was reading out a list from the state of what like no pages, no cell phones,
Yes.
no whatever this device was,
Yes.
which I can't think of right now, drawing a blank."
Not like a BlackBerry type.
That's exactly what it was.
A BlackBerry.
He goes, "No Blackberries," and he goes, "What the hell is a BlackBerry?" And I said, "Oh, it's a pretty high, sophisticated phone for the time,
Yes.
But I was just talking to somebody just a couple of days ago, and it was the person I'm tutoring,
Oh.
and she agreed that they should take the cell phones at the door.
Yes.
At the door.
Mm-hmm.
The student said that to me. So obviously there's a distraction there.
Yes.
And from what I've been reading online and stuff like that, is that the phone is a major problem.
Yes. It's definitely a distraction.
And unfortunately, without finding fault, I don't know that anybody under 20 is using the phone for anything other than like texting with their friends and stuff like that. Because I noticed that if I ask a question, they don't run, like when somebody asks me a question now, because of my advanced age, I have the Encyclopedia Britannica right here. Oh, hold on, and I'll type in.
Yes.
I don't see that with students.
No.
Even my grandsons. I'll ask them a question, and I don't know. They don't hit the phone to immediately. And now with this AI stuff, it gives you a thesis on the whole thing.
Yeah.
But no, I did not have to deal with cell phones. There were some primitive phones, and I did ask them to please put them away, and it was not the problem it is today.
Yes.
But we had other problems.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. And how would you describe the relationship between the school and the community during your times with them, with reaching out into the community? And
I don't know if I can answer that. I mean, from my own perspective, I thought we got along well with the community, but everybody has an axe to grind. I do know one year, I don't know. I don't think that there was so much dissent as that people want their kids to do well.
yes.
And nobody likes change. So if somebody comes in, they say they're going to do this or that or the next thing, and everybody's up in arms. I can remember back, I'm laughing because I remember back somebody came in and they were going to do away with the way the school was being run.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to have tracking anymore. We're not going to have this. We're not going to have that. We're not going to. All right. So anybody who was affected was all up in arms. So at the time, I was the teacher association president,
Mm-hmm.
and I was asked to say something at this meeting. Like, what am I going to say? I mean, I didn't think this up, So they asked me to please say something. I have no idea what I said, but I waxed on eloquently for about half an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And then somebody came up to me afterwards and told me that they felt much more relieved that their kids were going to be okay. Mm-hmm. And did I ever think about running for politics? And I said, no. But, getting back to what I just said, there were a number of years that the school was on, the budget got turned down by the voters, and we worked on austerity. I don't know if that's, with the assessed valuation on houses now, I don't know what the taxes are in Greenport.
Yes.
I know what my taxes are, and I don't expect to stop paying taxes.
Mm-hmm.
But I would never vote down a school budget, and that's not because I'm a retired teacher. That's because I don't want the kids to suffer.
Mm-hmm.
But anyhow,
Yeah.
they were good community. I mean, I've lived here. I've lived in the community for all these years. I don't know. I do know that I had to go to a number of meetings to at least tell people, don't worry, things are going to be okay, or explain why we were doing something the way that we were, that we were asked to come. I know I spoke a couple of times at CAST, but I don't know. For the most part, I think we got along pretty well.
Mm-hmm. And then for events in Greenport, do you remember the Mitchell fire?
Vaguely.
Yeah, vaguely. And was it 72?
No, it was later than 72, I think.
It was 74.
Might be 74.
But vaguely remember
yes.
that.
My first 2 years teaching, we got paid on the second and fourth Friday of the month.
Oh, okay.
Depending, it didn't matter where and we would go down and go to Mitchell's for lunch for the $1.99 businessman special. on Fridays when we got paid. So yeah, I remember Mitchell's, and my son Colin worked for Richie Mitchell for years. Afterwards, he would clean up when basically Mitchell's was knocked down, and somebody had bought it. But I think Richie got it back, and then my son Colin worked as the dock boy down there. The docks were not what they are now.
Yeah.
Dock boy, he cleaned up the restaurant, which was basically just a bar. It wasn't a restaurant then.
Yeah.
But it was a building that's behind, kind of in line with the carousel, but over by Aldo's. There was a building there that
was
it was like a motel at one time, and then Richie opened it up on the second floor for a bar that looked out over the harbor.
That was before it became Kokomo's?
I don't remember when it was Kokomo. As I said, I missed a lot of the nightlife being. It was after it became Kokomo's. That's when the new owners from 50 years ago took over. It was Kokomo's.
Okay. But are there any other changes that you remember through the 80s and 90s that within Greenport? Obviously the Mitchell Park was big in the early 2000s, but other changes through that time?
The water in the 80s and 90s, the waterfront was ignored. As I said, my wife worked at the post office, and I was out fishing one time with my good friend Herb, and we decided we were going to, instead of going all the way back to Orient to get my car and then so we came into Greenport by boat. There was no place to tie up. We just kind of sat there. And then and then when she came out, I yelled, and she had to walk down through behind the post office. They used to call it, I believe, I could be, somebody's going to call and mistake and tell me it was called Glass Beach with all the broken bottles. So a lot of bottles were broken out there behind the post office. The walkway was not there. From 3rd Street over to the park was not there. I believe that was a dream of Mr. Claudio when he was still alive. But all that that walkway now that everybody uses, that was all just kind of run down. That's where Glass Beach was.
Yeah.
It was all run down, broken piles, everything. My youngest son is a marine contractor, and when he first started, and he graduated from college in 1994, and he started doing this work, and he's still doing it now. But he got a lot of work outside of Greenport because the company that was in business was all their equipment was tied up revitalizing the waterfront.
Mm.
I can remember when the dock there was falling down. The dock by the ferry slip, the county dock.
Yes.
Where all the commercial boats. All the commercial boats used to tie up where all the yachts tie up now.
Mm-hmm.
That's where all the commercial boats were.
And what about when the Shelter Island Ferry, was that still going off of?
As far as I know, as far as I remember, the Shelter Island Ferry always was where it is right
Okay.
now. They didn't have the traffic they have now.
Yes.
You know, if I wasn't going to school, I always had a summer job. And one of the jobs I had, I was a dock builder for almost a decade. And we did a lot of work over in Shelter Island.
Mm.
And the boats didn't carry very many cars.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but just there was a lot more. I don't know. You know, you asked what's going on. People were there was something to go do out on the water. There's no fish out there now. Very few.
That's since like the late 90s started to.
Somewhere
Mid-90s.
it depends on the species, but I mean bass have crashed twice or three times in my lifetime. The weakfish have disappeared and are on the way back in my lifetime. The man I used to work for, who would be, if he was still alive, would be 20 years older than me. He put himself through college selling bait down in New Suffolk at his father's place. So back in the late 40s, early 50s, there was so many weakfish.
Mm-hmm.
My good buddy Mike that I taught with, Mike Conley, he says his father used to come out here in the 40s and they would tow him out and leave him out in the bay overnight. And they would come back and get you in the morning. Yeah, my uncle used to come out here right after the war and fish. Yeah, so when I told him I lived in Greenport, he goes, "Oh, the fishing's good out there." It's not so good anymore.
Mm-hmm. You got to go way out to get fish now.
You got to go way out. You know, there's no flounder, there's no fluke. Porgies are becoming few and far between. Mm-hmm. Yes, you can get a bucket of porgies, but that's the only thing that's keeping anybody going out there.
Yes.
Scallops, they were, you know.
All in the bay.
They were in the bay. First day of scallop season was like a national holiday. Nobody came to school. They were all out scalloping, you know. First day of scalloping used to be like the third Monday in September. Now they have it pushed back to the beginning of December. And if there was a bad storm, the scallops would wash up on the beach. I remember getting a phone call. It was my oldest guy was a big Pittsburgh Steelers fan back in the day when they, you know, I guess they won 2 or 3 Super Bowls in a row. But I missed the Super Bowl completely because I got a phone call that scallops were washing up on the beach in East Marion, and the DEC said take as many as you want. I went down there with a garbage can and filled up with scallops that they kept coming in with the waves. The wave would break and the scallops would be right there on the beach. They have not come back. I bought a boat in 1986, 87, with the idea that I would go scalloping. I have the dredges still. I never scalloped. There's never any scallops. So that's the part that has changed. You know, they sell this place as a fishing village, but you know, any of those boats that are out here are not from here. I think there's one boat left.
They're from
Greenport. One commercial boat that calls Greenport home.
When back in the 70s or 80s,
there was the whole fleet. There was a day fleet. There were draggers that used to dock opposite where the fish market is, Alice's Fish Market.
Yes.
Diagonally from there were like 6 or 10, closer to 10, day draggers. So basically they would just go out for the day, drag around Gardeners Bay, and then come back and sell their fish. Alice's used to be called Pels.
Yes, Pels fish.
And he would sell the fish to Pell. I worked on a couple of those draggers that summer that I was reading lots of books and eating. I worked on one of those draggers for a couple of days.
And did you remember a lot of the oyster plants when they were eventually changing to condos, and
Yeah.
like the one
There was a
one down by the beach.
there was one that I don't remember how it got there, but there was basically it was a restaurant. They took this barge and they made it into a restaurant. And I'm not talking about the seafood barge. I'm talking about down at the end of Fifth Street before the condos went there. There was a big barge or building on the beach that they made into a restaurant, which was an old oyster factory. All of the condos in Greenport down at the lower end of 4th and 5th Street were all built on basically abandoned oyster factories or oyster plants where they brought their oysters in.
Yes.
The other condos at Central Avenue, that was an abandoned shipyard, which was going gangbusters. That's the other thing. When I first came here, the shipyard was going almost round the clock.
Wow.
I don't know if they had a night shift, but they certainly had that. They had the 4 to 12 going.
But did that just slowly decline over the 80s and 90s, you think?
Well, the shipyard's still open, but it's not what they're not building boats there anymore.
No.
And again, there's a couple of other factories there now where there was a shipyard called Barstow's. And I taught both of the Barstow girls. It was just there. It wasn't terribly active. It had a collection of some really rare wooden boats. Believe me, when Mrs. Barstow passed away and they sold the boatyard, there were wooden boat people who were in there like crazy, getting artifacts out of there.
Yes. And what do you think of what Greenport has become today? More touristy and some more summer residents?
I don't know.
It's definitely changed since you started.
It definitely has changed.
Yeah.
I go out to dinner every week with a bunch of people, and just last week I said, I don't know anybody in Greenport, and the lady who's from the city says to me, "What, are you kidding me? Every week we go out here, you run into somebody." And I said, "Well, yeah, I run into somebody, but I used to drive through town and I'd wave to everybody." And my wife asked me if I was running for mayor. So, of course, we're leaving the restaurant, and there's a guy I haven't seen like in 10 years. So I said, "Excuse me, it has its pluses and minuses. I guess I'm old enough to remember when the North Road did not have any traffic lights on it. So now there's traffic, and I'm spoiled. It bothers me when I have to wait 5 minutes to pull out of Moore's Lane, where I never had to wait at all before."
Yes. What about the Crosstown Ferry? Was that...
The Crosstown Ferry was always...
even in the 70s?
It was, back in the 70s, because there was really, like, nobody here most of the time. So when the ferry got out, it was a big deal. Because so they landed every hour, and so for 5 minutes, 50 cars went by.
Oh, okay.
But Plum Island was the same way. You could set your clock. Plum Island used to have one shift. Now that I think they have variable shifts. And they're bringing a large number of people from Connecticut. But basically, everybody left from Orient. And I said I dock built, so I was working we were working for the government. My boss had a government contract. We were doing docks at the Plum Island place on the Greenport, on the Orient side, and over on the Plum Island side. So basically, we were there in the morning doing our work, and you look and you watch all these people dragging slow, and the boat would blow the horn, and they'd have to, and everybody kind of shuffle, get on the boat. But when the boat came in at 4:45. It was like the start of Le Mans. They were like sprinting to their cars because they didn't want to have to wait in the parking lot because everybody was emptying out at the same time.
Yes.
And I rented a house before we owned a house on the main road. And at 4:45, everybody was going by. And that was Plum Island. That didn't get as much bad press as the ferry. Yeah, people were complaining, it was interfering in this, that, and the other thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember being at a car dealership around here, and the owner of the car dealership said, they're never going to stop the ferry. It involves the feds. It's interstate commerce. They're never going to stop the ferry.
Mm.
Okay, that answered my question.
Yes. But I guess just looking ahead, what are your hopes for the future of the North Fork and its community down the line?
Well, it's not going to be what it used to be. And as I said earlier on, we don't like change. My wife says, well, and I said, listen, we had 50 great years out here. Mm-hmm. So, it's becoming the Hamptons North. I mean, we can't stop that.
Yes.
They're not making any more waterfront, mm-hmm. And everybody wants to live by the water. Mm-hmm. And I just feel lucky that I found the place before everybody else found it. I think it's going to continue to change. I think you're going to see more and more development. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, a lot of the land has been preserved, but certainly not all of it. Mm-hmm. 25,000 acres has not been preserved. Yes. But there'll always be a few farms. It'd be nice if if we could leave the fish alone for a while and they come back, but I don't know if that's going to be the case. I think that we have a lot of questions to raise for the future, like water. We're sitting on this tiny little bit of land.
And the sea level rise and...
Well, I'm not even so much... Well,
that's another
I'll
thing.
worry about sea level for my grandkids, but
yes.
It's not going to affect me.
You mean like just the water quality?
Water quality?
Shortage?
I'm still drinking well water.
Yes.
But I live across the causeway. Mm-hmm. They haven't run a water main out there yet. I don't know if and again, where's all this water going to come from? Mm-hmm.
Seems like they're talking about the Pine Barrens and bringing that out this way.
Well, they're going to bring it out, yes, and they preserved it, so it fine. I do believe that the decline in the bay is from the constant seepage of cesspools. Mm-hmm. They're finding out that the nitrogen in the water is, and I argue with my son about this all the time, anytime there's nitrogen in the water, they blame the farmer. Mm. The farmer. Well, first of all, that's a disappearing species, but...
Yes.
But, I live in a little subdivision that used to be a farm. Everybody gets some kind of fertilizer service in there 2 or 3 or 4 times a year. Mm. That all washes into the water, washes into the bay. So
it's a lot of just the irrigation of people's lawns.
Nonstop irrigation, right?
Yeah.
I'm the only guy in my subdivision that mows his own lawn.
Wow.
And I had this one guy that took care of, he was from Greenport. He took care of the house across the street from me, which is on the water. Mm-hmm. And this is like 10 or 15 years ago. And he goes, "Oh, Tom, you're too old to take care of the lawn." And I said, "Well, if you find me dead on the front lawn, you have my permission to drive my tractor and finish the lawn. But otherwise, I'm going to keep doing it. Thank you."
Yes.
But, we're here. Mm-hmm. I'm going to leave the planet being here, so, mm-hmm. I'm happy that we decided to stay way back when.
Yes. And also just being an educator, is there any advice you'd give to people today that are educators or students growing up now? Obviously, it's a different time and there's a lot of other major things going on in the world. And
right. But, take advantage of every opportunity you can get. Whatever you learn, they can't steal it from you. I can remember way back when I was teaching this biology class, And somebody said, what are we learning this crap for? And I said, when I was a Boy Scout, to get to a certain rank, I had to learn all these useless knots. Mm-hmm. And I said, what am I ever going to use these knots for? And I said, but I do know how to tie a bowline, and I use it all the time, and I never expected to do it. Mm-hmm. Get the max of what you can. Stop blaming everybody else, and, be your own person. My grandson, I have 2 grandsons. One's going back next Friday to start his master's, and the other one is going to start his junior year. But the junior is working with his father, and his father just threw him into the crane, and now he's running the crane. And his mother is, well, shouldn't he be able to, does he need some safety equipment? And I said, my grandson is the kid that drove that robot 2 or 3 years ago to the finals of the World Championships in Houston.
Wow.
The Southold robotics team.
Yes.
Went to the finals, to the overtime. It was my for the world title. It was my grandson at the controls of the robot. So I said to his mother, I said, he drove a robot to the finals. He can run the crane. And then I said to him last night, there may come a time where you don't want to be an accountant, or they don't need an accountant. And now you can, by the end of the summer, you'll be a crane operator. Mm-hmm. I said, that's a talent you can take with you for the rest of your life. And that's I guess, the message. Get as much as you can. You never know when you're going to need it.
Definitely. No, but I just like to ask at the end, was there any last minute things you'd like to say or discuss that we haven't touched on?
No, not that I can think of. I apologize for wandering around all over the place, but but that's me.
No, that was great. No, but I want to thank you so much for taking the time to come on today and share your story and all the work and education you've done for the community out here. It was a real pleasure to have you on today.
Thank you very much.
Well, I hope you enjoyed episode 208 with Tom Crowley. I want to thank you for listening to the Floyd Memorial Library podcast, and we'll see you next time.